Did you feel like people treated you differently when you were skinny versus heavier? And that's what
100%.
made you feel better?
100%. Yeah. I mean, like the positive reinforcement when I was losing weight was unbelievable. Now, nobody
Like,
gave me
oh, you look
positive
so good. You look
on
so
the
much
way
better.
down. On the way down, it was like, oh my God, can you tell me what you eat? Can you tell me what you do? How long do you exercise? Like people would ask me a million questions and it felt so good for
Mhm.
me to like, the lower my sizes got, the better I felt. And so when people would ask me, oh, are you a model? Because I'm tall. And then I got extensions. So I had like long blonde hair and I was tall. I was the person I always envisioned that I wanted to look like, but never did look like. I mean, I had bushy brown hair as a kid. And people would say, oh, do you model? And I'd be like, I can't believe people are actually asking me this question. Like chubby little Jackie, like people are asking me if I'm a model. It's wild.
Right.
And then, but when I was emaciated, nobody gave me positive reinforcement. It's just that nobody said me, and I had body dysmorphia. So I almost didn't feel like I looked that thin. I felt like other
Right.
people were just as thin as me. So it was a whole combination. It was a perfect storm of like mental illness and like loneliness and the positive reinforcement. And, it just all combined to make me so scared of ever going back to the way that I was, because people really did treat me terribly in high school.
Right. I do think it's important to mention though that when someone is a certain weight, it is healthier to start to lose weight, right? And pay attention to your weight, but it's the way that you have a relationship with
Oh,
food that
absolutely.
becomes the issue, right?
Right. I'm not endorsing, listen, I do think people look wonderful at every size, but I'm not going to sit here as like a size like 2'4" and say that I'm, like all of a sudden like body positive, because I mean, I am body positive, but I'm not representing bigger bodies still, So I do listen. I don't tell my kids just eat whatever you want. Life's too
Yeah.
short. I don't do that. So I do recognize the value in having, a healthy, relationship with food and eating in moderation. So I do think that's important, but the way that we treat fat people in this world it just leads to a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah, I agree. So when did you meet Evan along this path?
I was fully anorexic for about, for about like 6 months or so when I met Evan.
When you say anorexic, just clarify to the listeners what that means, because I think people have a vision in their head of what an anorexic person is.
That means that I was eating the bare minimum to get by. So it started as like elimination diet where I started cutting things out of my diet. But after a few weeks, that became really, I reverted to my Weight Watchers knowledge, which was eating the minimum amounts for like the maximum fullness. So by the time I met Evan, I had been doing several months of eating like such a low, like way less calories than my body needed to function. I had been doing that for several months already, like really, really low, like dangerously low.
And did you hide your issues from him? Did he see it? Was it something visible?
No. So when I met Evan, still definitely not thin.
Mm-hmm.
I was not obese, but I was probably like a size 6, size 8. I wasn't like.
And that's
thin.
why I asked you that question, because when people hear anorexic, they think of the women they see that are like 80 pounds, so gaunt that it's hard to look at them. You don't have to look like that to be anorexic, correct?
Yeah, that's a very big misconception. Anorexia comes in a lot of different body sizes. It's more about like what you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
But when I met Evan and I was only a few months in, I was still like a very, very normal size. So I looked healthy. So at first he had no idea. He started to catch on, we'd go out to dinner and he'd see it a little. But then about like a month and a half into dating, he's a smart guy. And he knew, because I had these little tricks that I would do. Like I would cut up food, chop up food in teeny tiny little portions, and then eat that for like an hour and like suck on things that aren't meant to be sucked on. Like I would eat jelly beans and like just suck on one for like 5 minutes, So he was like, I don't understand at first. And he would be like, let's order in together. And he would try. But, no one really teaches you how to talk to somebody about this stuff,
Yeah.
and no one teaches a guy how to deal with a girl who won't eat. Like I refused to eat, and there was nothing anyone could do to get me to eat. So he just accepted it. He had to.
Was there anyone you were confiding in at the time, or somebody who really turned to you and said, what's going on?
No, no, no. My mother would say things to me like, you're emaciated. Your arms look like you just came out of a concentration camp. Because when I got really, really thin, like around the time when I was getting married, was just so bad. She would cry. But other than that, people didn't say anything. I remember once I ran into a girl who I went to college with, and we ran into each other on the street in New York. And I was like, Robin. And she stopped and she looked at me, and her face was like, oh, what did you do to yourself? I remember. And I was so embarrassed. And like, we were just like, hi. And then we walked off. We didn't really even like talk to each other because there was nothing to say. Like we didn't know what to say to each other. And I remember thinking like, is that what people think when they look at me? Like that I'm dying? And then it just went away. And I was like, no, people are probably just jealous. You
That just
convince
gave me
yourself of
chills.
things. Yeah.
Wow. How does it feel? Explain to someone who is not familiar with an eating disorder. What does it feel like? Is it constantly on your mind? Is it you wake up and you're thinking how you can not eat that day or what you can? I mean, is it something that is literally in everything that you do? Or do you
It's in
just forget
everything.
about food?
No, you don't forget about food ever. If anything, food becomes more important. So it's like you have to avoid every temptation. You have to figure out ways to not eat. It's a full-time job. For me, anorexia was a full-time job, and it was part of my life that was always there, and I lived my life around it. So I did have like real, true joy, and I did have fun, and I did have great experiences, but there was always anorexia was always a part of every single thing that I did. I just compartmentalized. So it was like, I knew it was going to be a part of everything. It was a part of my pregnancy. It was a part of my wedding. It was part of every single day. But regular days at home when I didn't have to go to something, I had gotten used to a system of doing it. Like I knew what I was going to eat for breakfast. I knew what I was going to eat for lunch. And I ate the same exact things every single solitary day. I knew what I could have as safe snacks, and I knew a maximum amount of calories a day. And after that maximum amount was reached, I was not eating a single thing, nothing else.